Do you agree that vulnerability is the secret to emotional toughness? This is a question that was asked by Tom Billier on his Twitter, and this was inspired by his podcast with Robert Greene. And if you don't know Robert Greene, he's an author, and one of his books is about attraction and seduction. And so in that video that was posted on the Twitter, Robert Greene was talking about vulnerability and how it can be beneficial to you in terms of communication with other people. As you know, I recorded a video about honesty recently, and I believe honesty is a tool. I don't think honesty is as just a personality trait, like something good, like a virtue, something that makes you a bit of an angel, so to speak. I think of honesty as a tool for self-development, as self-improvement, because if you are not honest, if you're not honest with yourself, for example, not only with other people, because usually we think about honesty as, oh no, did I say the truth, if I'm asked. But the reality is, I think being honest with yourself is it has much more bandwidth, so basically you can be honest or dishonest with yourself much more often than you can be honest or dishonest with other people. Because let's say you have internal dialogue, and what if you're not honest with yourself? What if you forbid yourself to think or to say certain things inside of your mind? I remember one of my former co-workers, he was the kind of person who would not kind of hold back his thoughts and his words. But I remember he was feeling ashamed for watching, how should I say, adult videos on his phone. And also he was ashamed for looking at girls. And I remember we were once on a train and there was an attractive girl in front of us. And I remember he mentioned that, oh no, I'm trying not to look at her. And I was like, that's interesting. I never had that. Because in my case, I don't think looking is bad. I mean, staring, uncomfortably is, of course, will make other person uncomfortable. But just looking without any disturbance, so to speak, without bothering the other person, and if you look once and look away and then look twice and look away, that's it. If that's the extent of your staring, then what's the problem with that? And I'm sure anybody would appreciate that actually being paid attention to. I watched many interviews with older women, and they not complained, they basically said that they were surprised by how little men pay attention to them when they get older. And so the tone of those comments was kind of negative, kind of disappointed. And so I thought, so women actually care about attention, right? And in that situation, in the train, I told my friend, my coworker, that, I actually never thought of it as something bad. And so then he was like, you know what? I've been spending so much internal energy for just trying to not look, so basically for self-control, and I can totally relate to that. I sometimes also try to control myself, what I do, what I don't do in the public, but that's the thing, it's just one of those things that if you are not honest with yourself, then you have to spend energy, either hiding something from yourself or lying to yourself, and that's never a good thing, right? Just so you basically disrupt and disturb and distort your worldview. It's like putting on glasses that make your whole worldview kind of muddy and distorted. And so from my point of view, for example, I think of myself as this kind of animal, and I think of other people as animals, and we are just, I don't know, I don't want to use the word like advanced, because that kind of makes humans look so, how to say, superiority complex. I don't think we are so much more superior. Of course, we have problem-solving skills that would put to shame any animal, but still. Anyway, so I think of us as unity of animalistic and this abstract thinking, and so in the intersection of those two, that's what we are. We are not pure animal, but we are not pure logic. Okay, what I'm trying to lead it to is that honesty is one of those things that I don't think many people care about. I think this is one of the most important factors in your life. If you're not honest with yourself, you will be in trouble. If you are honest with yourself, you will not be in trouble. It might be not as easy to live if you're honest. It might be not as pleasurable, but it will be better. It will be more meaningful. Anyway, so this is again my opinion only, but what I believe about vulnerability when it comes to your communication with others is basically the value of vulnerability is in honesty. I believe that vulnerability not only shows honesty, but also it instills trust, and then it makes the other person feel compassion towards you. And then what's more interesting, I believe that vulnerability actually shows your toughness and strength. And this was the original question of Tom. Do you agree that vulnerability is a secret to emotional toughness? And we will talk about that a bit later. But for now, let's talk about honesty. And so, again, I think that honesty in relationships, in communication, is such a rare thing. When was the last time that, let's say, a company was advertising honestly? And I can give you a good example of that. There is a YouTube channel, Fort9. They are a website that sells motorcycle gear and tools and products for motorcyclists. Okay, and so recently they launched a new product, and they basically made a whole video about it. And at the end of the video, they say, look, if you need this, buy it. If you don't need this, don't buy it. We all have already too much stuff that we don't need, so don't buy it if you don't need it. And that was a great example of honesty, and that really works for this kind of target demographic, because I can tell you, motorcyclists, there are basically two categories: the wannabes and the skeptic guy. I don't know, I think there are basically two types, major types. Is like, one type is this kind of guy who wants to just show off, so they would even buy the wrong type of a bike, or they wouldn't buy a bike that they actually want or that would suit them, just because it would look cooler if they rode a different bike. And then another type is like, they don't give a damn about how they look. It's just the practicality, self-reliance, freedom, whatever. And so for that demographic, that kind of message is like, holy crap, you are being honest with me? What? So my point is that this honesty can be used in daily life as a tool for getting an upper hand, even. Not just to build like trust and connection with other people, which it does, of course, but just to stand out from the crowd. You can just be honest and be like, oh my God, that's unique, Anyway, so let's move on. Of course, vulnerability builds trust. And vulnerability is more, you need to be careful about how you present it. And again, this is just my opinion. And my opinion is that, at least in my experience, what works best is you say, look, I have these limitations, but I have these strengths. In sales, they teach you that one of the most powerful tricks, not really tricks, but one of the most powerful tricks is honesty. And how they show it is when you try to sell something. First, you acknowledge the weaknesses, and then you show the strength. So one of these classic examples is when there was an expedition going to the South Pole, I believe, and they said, basically the people who were organizing this expedition, they posted a newspaper ad, and let me read it for you. Okay, it was written by Ernest Shackleton, the famous explorer. So the title says, Men Wanted. For hazardous journey, small wages, bitter cold, long months of complete darkness, constant danger, safe return doubtful, honor and recognition in case of success. That's it. That's the ad. Understand? So, you see, that was an ad for an Antarctic expedition. So what kind of person can kind of join that expedition? What kind of person can, answer that ad? Is exactly the kind of person who you want, right? You can't say, oh, it will be amazing. Let's go, to the cold place. And it's not going to be so cold, but, maybe it will be a little cold. Let's try, What kind of person will you attract? And so my point is, this is actually one of the sales tactics which I personally used when I was selling many things. Well, usually bikes. So, for example, when I was selling my bike, I said, look, this bike is terrible on the highway, but it will go anywhere you want. It will not be fast, but it will get you anywhere you point it. And I would sell it for the asking price, and people would not bargain much. Unless, of course, they're like, low ballers, which, that's a different category. But the people who were actually interested in, they would be like, sounds good. You sound like a honest guy, because you tell it as it is. And so there would be no problem with that. You see? So this works. Honesty and vulnerability work. Next, I believe that vulnerability also shows compassion. And I'm not 100% sure, but I believe this is more in terms of intersex relationships. And I don't mean like, intimate relationship, but actually, yeah, maybe I do. I mean that when men are open and vulnerable with women, and yet still they are strong enough and tough enough, so they are this kind of, I think Jordan Peterson was actually mentioning about this archetype of the ideal man as the beast that needs to be tamed, and the woman is the one who will tame the beast. And so basically it's kind of like this strong and tough and unstoppable force that is at the same time weak at something. And so I think that brings this kind of motherly instinct, maybe. I don't know. What do you think? If you have any ideas, please share them. But I can easily see how that's possible. And probably the reverse is the same. It works in the same way. If the woman is like, no, come on, I can handle everything by myself. It's like, recently I've heard these opinions that modern movies are completely missing the point of a female character. So basically they're trying these kind of female superheroes, tough girls type of characters, and they just don't work, because women are supposed to be, attractive. Women are supposed to be kind of vulnerable. At the same time, they should be strong enough, right? So, but now they are not vulnerable. They are so strong. They're like, I don't need anything. I don't need anyone. So they basically, women characters became like men, and that's why those movies don't work anymore. The last time I heard it was about the Thor something. I didn't even watch it because it was like the whole premise was like, what the hell is that? I didn't even bother watching it. Anyway, but here's the thing. I believe that vulnerability only works if it's coupled with toughness and strength. So you can't just say, oh, everything's so bad, I'm so weak, I'm so fragile, it's so bad, and then you don't say that, and by the way, I can deal with it. And by the way, I have done this, I have overcome this, I have survived this, but I'm still weak, and I will handle anything that comes to me in the future. You see? So I think the vulnerability only works with these two kind of poles coming together. And so why Robert Greene is mentioning vulnerability and emotional toughness as two sides of the same coin is because I think being vulnerable, as he defines it, is being open to being hurt, to being wounded, makes you experience things more. So basically you have one life experience. Let's say in my case, for example, when my son had cancer, some people, they really kind of shut down. They try to ignore their pain, try to ignore their feelings. They just don't interact with the world anymore, right? But in my case, I let myself feel everything. I was like, of course, I wasn't like crying in the hospital, but I would allow myself at least once a day to have my emotions. And usually it was really overwhelming because every day it was I don't know, it's like, let's say on Monday we take him to the hospital, first hospital, and they check and they say, you know what, you should go to that hospital really soon, tomorrow, please go. And as a parent, it was like, oh my God, But to be honest, like, I just did my research by myself. As you know, I studied in medical school, so I know what I'm reading about. And so I knew what it was. But I remember sitting in that hospital on the first day and hearing my 2-year-old son scream because they are trying to hold him. So I don't know, like 2 nurses and 1 doctor. They're trying to hold him, and the doctor was kind of a young lady. Maybe, I don't know, a more experienced doctor would be like, okay, hold him still, I will do this. Like, just, more experienced doctors, they're less sensitive. And so again, I think just sensitivity needs to be let out from you. It's like calluses, when you exercise, your skin becomes stronger. So kind of like that. And for me, it was also kind of like that, but it was faster than natural pace of it. So the first day is, I'm in the hallway, I'm waiting, I can hear my son scream, like really scream. I can't describe this. It's, yeah, if you're a parent, I hope you will never have to hear that in your life. If you will be parent, well, again, I hope you will never have to hear it in your life. Not just, like when a child is crying, when he or she is having a tantrum or hurt their knee or something. It's not like that. It's long and it's pure suffering. That was the first day. And that was the easy part, because after that, we took him, it was finished, we go home. He was probably, I wouldn't say he was traumatized, but I saw that it was very hard for him. He went to sleep immediately in the car. The next day we go to the hospital. In the morning he's running around, playing, has 2 eyes. Then on that same day they say, we are gonna put him in the hospital today. And because it was COVID time, you can't stay here. You have to go home. You have to leave him here alone. And oh my God. Anyway, so basically, and then next day they go to take MRI. That was actually not so hard, but the explanation on that day was this. We're gonna take him to MRI. We're gonna check how deep this cancer spread. If it didn't leave the eye socket, then there is high chance that if it didn't leave the eye, right, not the socket, the eye itself, he had eye cancer. So if the cancer hadn't spread outside of the eye, then we just take out the eye, and probably he will live. Quite likely he will live. If it had spread, there is a 70% chance that he will die. Well, basically, as a parent, when somebody tells you these options, you're like, wow. So my child losing an eye is a good option? And so 2 days ago, you didn't even think of that. And today, you're thinking about this kind of stuff. And so on the 3rd day, I was sitting on the floor in the hospital because there were cafeteria was all occupied. I was sitting on the floor basically near the window, and I was thinking, what size of the coffin will my son be buried in, or burnt his body, because we are in Japan. And so that experience makes you tough. And now I can look back at it, and it still kind of slightly hurts to think about that. But because it's over, and my son, the cancer hadn't spread outside of the eye, so he lost his eye. All of that experience, like I'm telling you now that he lost his eye, the way I think about it actually is he got rid of the eye. So we got rid of the broken eye so he could live. I had to learn to reframe my thinking, right? I had to learn to A, accept certain things, B, rethink certain things, and I had to basically change part of my worldview that would now allow for this event to be naturally absorbed as a part of my personality, right? Because at first you are shocked, like a child, 2 years old, cancer, why? You expect older people to get cancer, you expect smokers to get cancer, you expect people who had radiation exposure, alcoholics or stuff like that. But it's a child, Nobody expects that. And so you have to readjust your worldview to match that new reality. And so what my point with this is, vulnerability and being ready to experience pain actually makes you stronger. And I was just today, I think, or yesterday, I read some bad comment on my video, and I'm like, yeah, that's not gonna hurt me. I mean, after that experience, sitting on the floor in the hospital, and my sister's husband sent me some videos. He says, "Oh, I know you're probably feeling like crap now, but maybe this will cheer you up." And I'm trying to watch this video, and I can't even listen to the words, because inside of my head there is so much processing going on that I'm like, yeah, words, they don't mean anything. So that video didn't cheer me up. And that was the time when I was thinking about the size of the coffin and how he would live his last days, and like, should I be there with him? Should I separate from him, because anyway he would die? So like, what would be the better course of action? You see, so like, the questions that bothered me at the time were so far away from anything that usual people think about, right? And so at the same time, I was developing these kind of calluses, maybe. And so when somebody comments on my video something like, I don't remember, I could read, but I don't want to. It's like, you're stupid, you're like something. I'm like, dude, that doesn't hurt at all. Like, if you want to hurt me, you have to try harder. These words on the screen can't hurt me anymore, right? And so this is my point. Being vulnerable and allowing myself to be hurt, deeply hurt, actually made me much tougher. Maybe not stronger, but tougher. Like, not many things can hurt me anymore, right? So I remember when I started my business, my partner suddenly left, and I was like, oh my God. But then I thought, you know what? It's not that bad. I mean, it is bad, but it's not terrible. So I can survive this. If I survived my son's cancer and he survived his cancer, what the hell am I worrying about? It's just a job. It's just a business. And also, did you know? So when the war in Ukraine started, I volunteered to help Ukrainian kids who would come to Japan. Okay. And before that, I thought it would be a good idea if I could have some kind of training, psychological training, like psychological first aid type of thing. And so I arranged for some people here in Japan to have a training who would then go and help Ukrainian kids too. And so during that training, I learned that actually it turns out that older people have higher resilience. And the explanation for that is because they have much more life experience and they have been hurt more. Now they have a better perspective. So it's like, I don't know, my grandma's brother died, older brother, when he was young. And so it means my great-grandma's son died of cancer, by the way. When you reach certain age, many of your friends are dead. You've had many losses in your life. You've had many problems in your life. And then when the new problem comes, you can kind of assess where it ranks on that list of possible problems. And you're like, yeah, it's about number 4, being worse, And so then it's just easier to deal with things. And so like in my case too, that impeding business failure was like, yeah, that would be about problem number 3, by ranking. Not terrible. I would still survive. I would not, go homeless, right? So what is there to worry about? So for some people, it would be like, oh my God, my business might be ruined. No, horrible. For me, it was, yeah, it's not good, but it's not the end of the world. And so this attitude only comes from being vulnerable and from, having life experiences and not being afraid to take chances that then can hurt you, basically. And in my case, I can give you one hint. Idea. If you have this kind of difficult situation, you can ask yourself, how could this be worse? Because this is what I was asking myself when my son had cancer. And I was like, at some point, around that same time when I was sitting on the floor, it was 3rd or 4th day of hospital, I was thinking, you know what? If his life will be finished this year, it's going to be a very short life. I wasn't sure if he would live to 3 years old. And then I thought, wow, that's a short life. But then I thought, but you know what? It was a good life. It was short, but it was a good life. And that's more than many people have. And so it would be better to have a short, good life than a long, terrible life. You see? And so my point is, if you have this kind of, I want to say negative, I don't know if it's negative, it's just like more wider outlook. If you can ask yourself, how could this be worse? And if you ask yourself that, you will find out that actually it could be worse. Even if you are dealing with really terrible situation, it could be worse. And it's not worse, so you're not so bad, Anyway, and one more thing I want to talk about. It's honesty and attractiveness. And I mentioned this in one of the previous videos. I was mentioning that honesty is attractive, and I said that I didn't know if there was any research. And you know what? There was a research. And there was a research that you can find in the Journal of Research in Personality. It was done in 2006. And basically what they did was this. They presented the participants with 16 types of people and their photos. Okay, so the photos were all taken from like stock websites, so not really important. They were about the same look, and so it was either male or female, high in intelligence or low in intelligence, independent or dependent, honest or dishonest. And so then, after reading a person's description, this is a fictional person, right? The people were asked to rank and rate those people based on their attractiveness, okay? And so this is based on the halo effect. You know that humans usually think that an attractive person would be, let's say, more competent or more interesting or more intelligent or healthier and stuff like that. Or let's say a really smart person would be also a kind person. So basically we attribute other positive traits if we see one positive trait. And we can also do the same with the negative. If we think, okay, this person is dishonest and therefore they are lazy, for example. But maybe we don't have that proof. And so what turned out as a result of this study is that honesty changed how a person's face was valued. So when a person was described as more honest, their face was rated as having a finer hair, a more graceful neck, more physically fit and healthy, a kinder face, and more attractive. And so this was true for both men and women. So you understand, right? So both men and women were ranked as more attractive. Okay, and just for bonus, so do you understand that this kind of proves scientifically that if a person is perceived as honest, they are also perceived as more attractive. Okay, and now as a bonus, as I mentioned, there was also intelligence and independence. Okay, intelligence and independence didn't make that strong of a difference on their own, but when they were combined, they had very interesting effects. For example, men and women with higher intelligence and high independence were seen as more attractive on different facial attributes. However, this is the interesting point. When men and women with low intelligence and high independence, they were seen as less attractive. Understand? So, okay, so people who are intelligent and independent, they are seen as, go-getters who can take care of themselves and maybe of somebody else, right? But people who are not smart but independent, they are seen as dangerous and like loners type of people. So this is very interesting. I wonder where I would fall. I suspect I would be an unintelligent, independent type of person. I don't know. Tell me, what do you think? So anyway, so these are my messages, my ideas for today. Please leave me a comment. I don't know. Comment below. Tell me what you think. Okay, and thank you very much for watching. And by the way, I have a special resilience worksheet. Okay, if you want to get it, leave a comment below, and maybe I will, either post a link or something. This worksheet has 16 different questions, and you can use this worksheet if you are in a hard situation. So for example, like when I was sitting on the floor in the hospital thinking of my son's coffin size, that's what I would need. Understand? So if you have any difficult situation in life that you would like to deal with, but you have, let's say, nobody to talk to, or the people you have, they would not ask the right questions, well, this is what you would need. 16 questions that will help you not overcome, but at least manage yourself in a difficult situation. So if you want it, leave a comment and I will either post a link or send it to you. I don't know how it works. And I will see you next time.